This is the small cemetery at North Tawton. As we enter the main path, we notice at the end the war memorial taking centrepiece. On the other three sides of the memorial are some 50 names of the men who died in the First World War. "50 names is absolutely remarkable. The current population of North Tawton is 2,000 people. Now these names will have come from the areas around North Tawton, but it's still a very small population to have given up 50 lives. From the memorial, I'm looking back down the graveyard. On this side they look newer stones, and over here a little older. We'll walk down the older side first and pick out any interesting ones that stand out. Nothing very large in this cemetery. This is probably the largest, this stone cross. This is James Gibbings Taverner, beloved husband of Mabel Louise, and there's a fairly recent one, 1951 he died. Now if you can hear voices in the background, that's because alongside the cemetery here is a junior school and some sort of outdoor games going on. The teacher with a loud voice is organising them, or trying to organise them. A war grave here. Sergeant H.C. Lee, wireless operator and air gunner, RAF 1941, age 25. This one is an angel mounted in front of the cross. Fortunately she's lost her right hand. Just a couple of typical stones we have here. Richard Henry White, 1935. You may hear the bell tolling now from the school. Elizabeth Jane White, 1939. This one's a little more elaborate. Lily Mary, wife of Herbert H. Orchard, 1922. And she was just 32. One over here, Georgina Lewis, age 76, and her husband Charles Lewis. This one here is enclosed with metal railings, and the inscription, if we close up on it, that reads Mary Ann Lady Clifford Talbot Constable. So one of the aristocracy that lived nearby. One here, I'm looking part the way down. Frank Gibbings Taylor, corporal in the 21st Wessex Divisional Signalling Company, Motor Detachment of the Royal Engineers, who died at the military hospital in Exeter in 1915, aged 18. And there were a number of military hospitals in Exeter. They used a number of buildings there, including Streatham Hall, and he died as a casualty in Exeter. Nearby is Private Harry Pitsey, Royal Fusiliers, who died in Reading Military Hospital from wounds received in action in France, and he was aged 33. One here to Mary Anna Seward, the daughter of John Luxton Seward and Martha. One here with the bell carved at the top, And it's William Fewings, aged 70 years. For 42 years, captain of the Ringers of St Peter's Church in North Tawton. And for 5.5 years, honorary secretary and treasurer of the Devon Association of Ringers. A small one here in a red coloured stone in memory of our dear parents, Ernest Brearley, who was killed in action in 1917, and Bessie, who died in 1926. This one has obviously been repainted recently, picked out in black paint. Much easier to read. In loving memory of Hector William, the beloved son of Henry Smith and Mary Ann Whittet, 1923, just 17 years. Someone's come back and remembered the people on this stone. This one has the name very clearly. It gives his army number, Private Richard Bolt, son of Francis and Ellen Bolt, who died 1918, aged 32. So I'm suggesting that was a World War I casualty remembered here. Difficult to make out is another number, and it's Wallace John Bolt, brother of the above, who fell in action in 1917, aged 23 years. So two brothers remembered here, dying in the Great War. This one, leaning at an angle, is Winifred Eleanor Gardner, 1918, aged 14 years and 5 months. Hers was a beautiful age in life. And beneath that we've got her sister. I can't quite see the age on that one, but she died in 1916. Another war memorial here to Private H. Hayward, Royal Defence Corps, died 1916. Down here is a little stone carved with flowers in front of the cross. Winifred Vera Louise, the only daughter of W. and L. Hurd, who died aged 1 in 1904. Beautiful, the stone is still standing there, nearly 120 years after she passed away. And another one, small one here, presumably again for a child, but because it's very close to the trees here, it's got a lot of lichen on it, and the inscription is not very easy to read. And that is the small cemetery here in North Tawton. This is the Church of St Peter's in North Tawton. The amazing thing to know is that part of this church was built in the 13th century. There were later additions in the 16th century, and of course it's been renovated a number of times since. We're talking about a building that parts of it is over 700 years old. There are a number of memorials here in the graveyard, although clearly a lot of them have been cleared. Just inside the gate is this very clear stone, Agnes Salter, aged 34 years in 1854. Interesting to note that the stonemason made a mistake with the date, and you can see his correction on top. A 4 appears to be on top of a 9. So after all these years, 170 years later, we can still see the typo error stonemason made. And underneath we've got George Durrant Salter, her younger son. He was just 15 years when he died. Next to it, by this front gate, is Edward John Salter, 1872, and he was just 21 years. And beneath that is William. Robert Knott here, and of Mary his wife. Next is John Gibbings. Susanna Seward. Alongside there is Sophia Seward. Richard Gibbings. He died in 1858, aged 57. They've put a lot of the stones that have been removed from the main part, so they're preserved along the edges here. Under the branch of this tree we've got Keziah, the wife of Andrew Snell. She died in 1860. Very clear to read, although it's tilting at quite an angle to the left. Mary, the wife of John Hooper, late of Summer Farm, Fellbridge, 1900, aged 74. And beneath that we've got John Hooper, 1907, aged 80. Another very clear stone, John Skinner, born at Milbourne in Dorset in 1782. He died at Westercott in 1862, so he was 90. Nancy, his wife, and John Skinner, his son. Another Gibbings here, Henry Durant Gibbings, eldest and much loved son of Henry and Elizabeth Gibbings, 1888, aged just 46. And looking at these stones on the boundary here, just beyond it we can see this delightful old cottage, thatched cottage, very small windows that were used centuries ago. A historic building there. One to Grace, the wife of Richard Stanlake, 1888. Mary Ann, the wife of Daniel Lewis, 1896. Here's one with this lovely orange lichen on it, quite carefully carved at the top. And this is to Charlie, rather than Charles, Charlie. And he was a lad who died in 1893, 8 years and 11 months. Well, these stones are very clear to read, and of course the sun is very low today and shining directly on them. More of the stones that have been moved to the boundary wall. Up on the wall of the church near the entrance is William, son of John and Eleanor Snell. He died in 1803, aged 2, or aged 1 in the second year of his age. And then you've got the details of his parents dying. Well, the church is open today, but they've got a toddler group in there just finishing up, so there's children and parents moving around. But we'll just go in there and get a couple of pictures inside the church. Well, that's the church and the separate cemetery in North Tawton. It's been a really lovely time seeing the memorials here. A lovely little village. Till the next time.